Hello, and welcome to Virtual Flight Diaries, Military Mondays live stream. So what we have here is the F-86 Sabre jet by Milviz and Shrike. So we're gonna take this up. We're gonna kick it around. We're gonna talk a little bit about the history of it, and we're not gonna have much time tonight because I have to get up for work tomorrow. But we should have a good time. So let's get inside. There's the cockpit. A lot of this I found is not modeled. So there's some things that I find a little disappointing with it, especially compared to the price point. Maybe it's just something I haven't quite figured out, but you'll see. You'll see once we get up in the air what I'm talking about, even when the startup. So let's get her fired up. All right, so engine master can come on. Battery to starter. And then we'll take her out of lock. Oh, my bad. We need the ground cart. So the F-86 Sabre jet was built in the late 40s. First flew October 1st, 1947. To get a picture of let's just listen to that startup. Get a picture of what I'm talking about in time frame. So if we knew about Chuck Yeager's flight that broke the sound barrier, that was October 14th, 1947. And all this took place here. First flight of the X-86, which it wasn't even a fighter yet, and Chuck Yeager's historic sound barrier flight. Interesting caveat, actually, is Chuck Yeager might not have been the first person to break the sound barrier. In my reading, I have come across a small blip that the gentleman that first flew the X-86, George Welsh, he was a World War II ace, on October 1st, may have actually broke the sound barrier in this type of airplane. All his instruments and flight data were actually indicated that he may have gone past Mach 1. So, but since nothing was official, no official Air Force or Army Air Force witnesses, he didn't get the credit. So we'll never know for sure if it truly occurred. Oh, you know what I want? I want to give her some gas so we can fly around for a while. Okay. A couple things I haven't quite figured out, like this hydraulic pressure selector switch. I'm looking for it. So this one was purchased outside Microsoft's marketplace. So it actually has the ability to arm the guns. If anyone has seen my shorts video, you can see the guns firing. Let's take a look at that panel. What's that? Windshield, anti-ice. The trims, cockpit air temperature and pressure controls. Oh well. So we're gonna get into the air. There's a couple things. One, the flaps don't seem to bind. I think they're an Elvar. These wing flaps. A couple of the switches aren't modeled. You click them and nothing happens. They show that they should be, but I don't know. Maybe it's just broken. I'm not sure. Okay, what am I missing here? Because I don't have my gun sight. Hmm. Ah, that's right. All right, so for those that have downloaded this and trying to figure it out, this is the switch. This one marked guns. If you flip it up and then have a key bound to the toggle water rudder, you can fire the guns. Oh, we're gonna get going. So this thing doesn't have an autopilot, so it's all hand flown. So for $29.99, it's kind of overpriced in my opinion. The Tornado and like the Heapler F-14, their price points aren't much higher, and you get a lot more plane to learn. The system's depth is a little lacking for its price point, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. It's still, we can have some fun with it. I'm going to take it for a spin. We're going to head over to the mountains. I've done a lot of history research on this plane. It's very interesting. It was the first U.S. swept-wing fighter, built by North American and Canadian Air. There was some Canadian versions of this plane that were actually better. The best version of this plane was actually the Canadian Air Mark 6. Go Canada. I'm just going to taxi out here. I'm going to turn on the lights. Probably shouldn't have done that. Meant to do that. I always seem to shut off my engines when I do these military jets. Just going to back taxi here, runway 23 left. So at the time of Chuck Yeager and the F-86, this was called, let me see here real quick, Muroc Lakebed Army Air Base. And it wasn't Edwards until about the 50s. So if anyone's ever seen The Right Stuff, that movie, great flick, by the way, you know that at the time, in 1947, the United States Air Force was actually the United States Army Air Force. It was just a department of the Army. And it wasn't until almost 1950 that it became the United States Air Force. But Edwards Air Force Base became the ground zero pretty much for the test pilots of the time. Everybody came out to the high desert to fly the fastest planes that were being built. And they kept expanding this airbase to what it is today. And it has some very long runways. So this is 23 right, this is 12,000 feet long. And 23 left is 15,000 feet long. It's so long that this is actually one of the landing sites for the space shuttle. Well, 12,000 feet, I think, got some. So this plane could reach the 600 mile an hour requirements that the U.S. Air Force at the time had for fighter jets. And the reason it made that mark is because of its swept wing design. As you can see, it had these swept wings, which was actually new for the time. Most planes, including jets, were designed actually after the P-51 Mustang, which had a straight wing design, and they just couldn't get the speed with the straight wing, but the swept wing put it over the mark. And just to note, this livery is Major Hagerstrom's MiG poison in the Korean War. I believe it is a livery of a Mark IV F-86, but that one I'm not too sure about. So we're going to hold the brakes, bring the power up. Not a very fast plane on the takeoff. Didn't have afterburners. That's great. Here, come up. Tell you what, it is pretty cool looking. Let's go mess around with some mountains. Shoot some guns. So like I said, this was the premier U.S. swept-wing fighter. Arrived in Korean War, early on, 1950. The at the time, all that was out there was the straight wing fighters that we had. The Fury, I believe, was one. The F-86 Panther. And they were going up against the MiG-15, which was the Soviet swept-wing fighter at the time. Probably would help if I put the flaps on. So, like I was saying, the MiG-15 with its swept wing had a better turn radius, climb ratio, speed. It was far superior than the current straight wing fighters that we had, and oh, one last thing. Thanks. It's actually very easy to fly. The flight model is modeled nicely. I mean, it's very stable. You can trim it out very easily. Yeah, like right now, I have I don't have my hands on the controls, so. But yeah, well, thank you very much. One last thing, he said, nice takeoff. It was very smooth. Now, it's also a very maneuverable jet. Barrel rolls are pretty spot on. So like I was saying, so we were getting our asses kicked. And the Air Force had this new fancy swept-wing F-86 Sabre jet, so they decided to rush them over to Korea, piloted by former World War II aces and highly trained pilots. The pilots for the F-86 fighter program were trained at Nellis Air Force Base, or Nellis Air Base at the time. And the training was so rigorous that the death rate for training accidents were extremely high. And it was actually said that if I honestly don't know what that beeping was. I think it was the gear up. Well, low speed. So, it was said that if you saw the flag at full mast, it was a. Let me find that quote real quick, because I want to get it right. If you ever see the flag at full mast, take a picture. That's how bad it was. So, but they produced some seriously aggressive pilots, and they were able to go head to head with the MiG-15 and met their match, pretty much. So the combination of these highly skilled, aggressive pilots mixed with the old World War II aces, we were able to, throughout the 3 years of the war, gain air superiority. Although the MiG-15 was still faster and more maneuverable than the F-86. So it was a testament to the skill of those pilots. So it's we're doing about 300 knots. That's actually half throttle, so let's do some full throttle stuff. I'm going to dip down into the valley here. You can see now treetop level at 450 miles an hour is just badass. And what's a fighter jet if you're not clipping the treetops, right? Another fun fact, the first woman to ever break the sound barrier, Jacqueline Cochran, did it in an F-86. It was a Canadian version. It was a Mark IV. Mark III or Mark IV. And with the help of Chuck Yeager, she became the first woman to break the sound barrier. Hold on a second, concentrating a little bit. Takes a little bit of coordination in going this fast through the mountains. Although, if anyone saw my F-14 Tomcat video, we took it up into the mountains too, and we were doing the speed of sound. So I guess this isn't too bad. I know you guys are curious about these guns, so we're gonna arm them, and I'll show you guys. All they are is a visual effect on the plane. They don't actually, like, you don't see tracers coming out the nose. Trim this out a little bit. You don't see tracers coming out the nose or anything like that. So the guns are armed. So for armament loadout, this airplane actually would carry 50 caliber M3 ammunition. It had 6 of them in the nose. 650 caliber Mark M3s. Also carried rockets. Now, the rockets aren't missiles. They were just unguided, kind of point and shoot kind of thing. They were air to ground. Could also carry a loadout of about 1,000 pounds worth of bombs too. So we're going to strafe a convoy here. And then just a visual. But air to air in this plane was done with the guns. And what made the World War II aces so good was their veteran status. Like, they've all been there before, kind of thing. And you know, it was just, you could see you can gain some altitude, do some dogfighting maneuvers. The plane with its swept wing configuration was actually pretty agile. And the sight that this thing had was top of the line at the time. It could predict lead. And, you know, shoot down the enemy. It was actually a crashed F-86 during the Korean War, and the Russians learned that the best advantage that this plane had was its sight. So, it kind of stole that technology then. Alright, so I'm gonna do some. Let's not black out. Oh, that couldn't have been more than 7 Gs. Modern fighter jet. Some aerobatics. I forget the name of that maneuver. I'm not up on my aerobatics, guys. But that was used to gain altitude in reverse direction very quickly. Had a pretty good climb ratio. I mean, here's the Pacific coast. Like I said, there's not much to this plane. and it's kind of lacking in my opinion. But you can have some fun with it. So. Hey Rory, I'm doing good. Welcome to the channel. I'm just kicking the tires on the F-86. That's pretty much it. So I'm gonna see if I can find Edwards. Show you guys a landing in this thing. So we're heading back to Edwards. Let's see what else fun facts we can have about the F-86 Sabre jet. Its development cycle, the next aircraft that came from this design was the F-100 Super Sabre, and that found service in the early Vietnam. But all the technology moved so fast that it was obsolete by the late 50s. But it was very popular worldwide and remained in service in some of other countries' air forces until 1986. One of them being the Argentinian Air Force. So that's pretty. It's a pretty fascinating length of service. Now the U.S. kind of took them out in the 60s. You know, they had the A4, much more advanced aircraft. But for the time, the F-86 was, you know, pretty much the airplane that won the jet fighter that won the air war in Korea. So actually, I lucked out, you know, not having a GPS or anything like that. When I rolled out in that last maneuver, I was pointing right at Edwards. So we're cruising here at almost 500 knots. So you can imagine, you know, being a 1950s World War II ace flying around, you know, 500 plus knots. Although P-51 Mustang, which was the premier fighter of World War II, and not to exclude the British Spitfire, they were an excellent fighter as well, but the North American P-51 was just all around speed, maneuverability, range. And the pilots that came from those planes came into here. So 500 knots actually wasn't that much faster than the P-51. P-51 cruising at between 300 and 400 in a combat scenario. So I read a blip on a fighter pilot that was transitioning from propeller to jet. And his major thing was the response time with the power and the fact that there was no torque. That everything was just smooth. His acceleration, everything was just spot on. And that was one of the things that he commented on. Alright, so let's see if we can land this bird. We'll bring the power back. We're going to do a typical military landing. We're getting the gear warning, which I hope is the gear warning. As everyone knows that my forte in Microsoft Flight Simulator is airliners and general aviation aircraft. So military jets are a bit of a new thing for me. I don't do DCS World or any kind of combat. Alright, so let's do a downwind. Oh. Another 300 knots, gear come down. Yeah, here we go. Flaps can come out. First stage of flaps. Slow down to 250. Try not to stall. 200, full flaps. Get my view. I believe I overshot. Very hard to see in this. I don't have my view set right. Alright, let's try for that again. I cut it a little too tight. But we're in a fighter, so. Come around. Because of the swept wing design, our approach speed should be about 150, 160. So we're a little fast. So this is going to be a hard landing, guys. But we have plenty of runway. We could try to bleed off that speed. Yeah, 349, that was a little hard. Oh, there was no reverse thrust. And just give it some brake. Definitely not like my general aviation landings, but I'll take it. So we'll taxi over and shut down, and we'll take a look at that landing. One last thing, says thanks for another good Military Mondays. Well, thank you very much. If you hang on for a second, you can take a look at that replay of that landing. I'm very glad that you guys enjoy this kind of stuff that I'm putting out here, and I really love doing it. For the next Military Mondays, we're going to have a little bit of a more in-depth plane. I'm learning the Avro Vulcan Cold War bomber, so we're gonna check that out. Parking brake, come on. Kill the engine. See, the engine sounds are kind of lacking. Should have wound down instead of just shut off the noise. But it is what it is. If you like high fidelity, in-depth kind of aircraft, I don't really recommend this one. But it is fun to knock around. So let's check out the I'm going to start the engine just so we don't glitch on the replay. Yeah, Rory, my knowledge of military jets is just not as extensive as my GA aircraft. But it's fun to read about them and learn a little bit about how they operate and their systems. This one doesn't seem to want to start back up. That's all right. Let's check out the replay. Yes, pollution wasn't a thing back in the 50s. I missed that approach, so came back around. Very old school looking landing gear. So like I said, came in a little too fast. See, I tried to flare too much, I think. Wasn't too bad. One more time. See, right there, I put too much flare in there. So if I would have just held where it was, I think I would have landed a little better. Well, guys, thank you for watching. Really enjoy doing these things for you guys, and you know, like and subscribe to my channel. You get more Military Mondays and other content. And I'll leave you guys with the landing. You guys have really been great. So, on to the next one. Clear skies and smooth landings. Thank you very much.